Hello. We are going over the 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. You are watching this on the Halachgoy channel of YouTube. I'm a Halachgoy, and you can be one too. 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. Prophecy number 70. Died of a broken heart. We find this prophecy in the book of Psalms, chapter 22, verse 14. I was poured out like water, and all of my bones are out of joint. My heart turns to wax. It has melted away within me. We find the fulfillment of this prophecy in the book of John, chapter 19, verse 34. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. What happened in the book of John, Jesus is hanging up on the cross along with all the other people. It's coming near the Sabbath time, and the authorities want the bodies to be taken down off of the crosses. So the Roman guards are expediting the deaths of the prisoners by breaking their legs. If they break their legs, then suddenly all of their weight comes crushing into their chest, and they die very quickly. Otherwise, they're constantly pushing themselves up by their legs, and that causes a very long, prolonged death. These soldiers, they knew what they were doing. They were very experienced when it came to dealing with people that were dying. People that were dying in a horrible situations. They knew what to look for. They knew to see, okay, this person is going to live for a while. This other person is pretty much dead. They could differentiate between it. Most of the prisoners, they broke the legs, causing their bodies to collapse. When they came to Jesus, they looked and they said, this guy looks like he's pretty much out of it. And they knew if they speared him in the chest, if they speared him up through the chest, and if fluid came out a certain way, they would know, okay, this person's dead. His heart is no longer working. His heart is basically the guy's dead. He's not gonna survive. The soldier pierces Jesus with a spear. It goes up around his heart. Water and blood comes out, and therefore they don't have to break his legs. King David is speaking in Psalms chapter 22 of a person going through a very, very difficult situation. In the poetic language of prayer and of Psalms, he is speaking of an emotional feeling that many of us have experienced, the heart melting like wax. If you're in a very troubling situation, and there's some hope that you're hoping for, and you're banking on that, and you're hoping that it'll work out, and all of a sudden it just disappears, that can cause a sensation inside of you that your heart is melting like wax. Your confidence, your aspirations, your hope just disappears inside of you, and it literally feels like it's melting like wax inside. Maybe it could be a situation where a soldier is in a battlefield and he's surrounded, He is being shot at, and he knows that if he can make it to a bridge and get across that bridge, he'll be in friendly territory, and everything will be okay for him. And he's running towards that bridge, knowing, okay, if I get his hope is if I can just get to that bridge and get across that bridge, I'll be okay. He gets to the bridge to discover that the enemy had taken it over, and there was absolutely no way he was going to get out of his situation. That soldier would feel like his heart had melted within him. It turned to wax, and it just melted within him. I knew people that had 401k plans with lots of money in it, and one day they woke up to realize that all of their retirement funds had just disappeared because of the economy. Their heart melted like wax. It was really, they became despondent. They lost all hope, all joy just left them. That is what King David is speaking of here. There are people, there's medical doctors that have described what perhaps happened with Jesus, that a rupture had occurred within him, and that caused the fluids to come out of him in this way. That is not what is being spoken of in Psalm 22. The Roman soldiers knew to look for it. It was a medical condition. It was not the emotional trauma, but rather a medical trauma that Jesus is experiencing at this point that's being described here in the Gospel of John. And therefore the two really don't fit correctly. Although I'm sure that Jesus also was experiencing much of what David was speaking of regarding his own hopes and aspirations disappearing from him. It has nothing to do with the spear being thrust through him. The next prophecy we'll be looking at suffered agony on Calvary. Psalms 22, verses 14 and 15. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.